assembled here today to explain to you something very important, very close to our heart at both MRT Corporation and our project delivery partners, MMC Gamuda, which is the Traffic Management Plan, or TMP, which is something that both ourselves, MRT Corporation, and PDP, as well as our contractors, will put in place at all our project sites to ensure all our project sites which have access to vehicular traffic. Yeah? Now, it is a very important component of this project for us, with the main objective of ensuring minimal public inconvenience during the construction. As you know, today you are all drivers of your own vehicles, and whenever there is a construction, there is typically there is a jam. Typically, there is some impact on traffic. So we want to minimize the impact that we have. Now, the details will be expanded by Encik Adil, but essentially what we're trying to do with this TMP is to ensure that public interest is safeguarded in terms of safety, inconvenience during the construction period as they drive around or near the construction zones. So, and not just for vehicular traffic, for pedestrians as well, for those who are on foot. We will ensure that 5-foot ways ataupun siar kaki is not impacted, or if we have to, then we provide an alternative road access for pedestrians. Now, the top concerns for us during this MRT construction would be traffic congestion, lack of public info and prior notice when there is closures and diversions, and road user safety compromise in certain areas. Now, these would be the top 3 concerns of people who are impacted by any project, and not just ours. But for us, we want to address those key issues: traffic congestion, lack of information to people who use the road, as well as road users' safety. Okay, so there is this misconception, as I said, kalau you all bawa kereta, you akan kata ni bila ada kerja pembangunan mesti ada traffic jam. So kita want to change this public perception. So ada komponen-komponen utama dalam TMP ni. The main components are formulation of a traffic system that causes zero or minimal traffic disruption, identifying alternative routes. Ketiga ialah strategic placement of clear and informative notices and signages at roads leading and around the work zone. Fourth is the advanced dissemination of information regarding roads affected through the use of media channels such as yourselves. Collaboration. Number 5 is collaboration with local authorities and traffic police to ensure smoother on-site traffic management. And of course, in the event of an emergency or an accident, to deploy the ERT, or emergency response team, on site to assist with traffic flow. So, one of the concerns that people will have, obviously, is whether or not traffic will be impacted. So, just to give an example, for example, the Jalan Sultan, when we are now currently redeveloping the area by bringing down the buildings of Bus Stand Klang, Plaza Warisan, and UO Plaza or Superstore. We do not make any road closures there. If there's any road closure, kita buat between 12 to 5 a.m. 12 in the midnight to 5 a.m. So this clearly is part of our efforts to ensure that for the people who are working around there, for people who are going around to Jalan Sultan and that area, business as usual, and there is very minimal traffic disruption. So that eventually, when people look at the MRT project, it is going to bring you future convenience, but at present moment, it must also be something which is not impacting too badly their movement and their traffic. So, while we cannot totally avoid congestion, our point with the TMP is to ensure that it is minimized and that any kind of road closures is done with proper alternatives provided to all the road users as well as pedestrians. So for the details, I'd like to hand over to Encik Adil Putra, the General Manager of MMC Gamuda, to give you the slide presentation. Adil?
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullah, and very good morning to everyone here this morning. Thank you for attending this briefing. I will now try to give you some details with regard to what we mean by traffic management plan, or what we refer to as the TMP. Now, as you know, the MRT alignment will pass through some very densely populated areas, and it will also pass through some very heavily traffic roads in KL and PJ area. If you look at the alignment, which I'm sure you have seen before, the alignment which starts from Sungai Buloh will eventually run through PJ, areas like Kota Damansara, Bandar Utama, Taman Tun, and it will go through DBKL, which is the city centre, and finally end up in Cheras and in Kajang. So there are a few major roads in that area which are constantly congested at peak hours. So when we look at designing the traffic management plan, or the TMP, there are a few areas that we would be concerned about. Some of the major issues that we would be concerned are things like space constraint when the construction starts. When you start the construction, definitely with all the constructional equipment that will be there will definitely be some space constraint. Visibility to the road users would be reduced due to the works going on at the work zones. Traffic congestion, which is already prevailing on certain roads. Okay, so what happens when the construction starts? When the construction starts, definitely the surrounding residents will be affected by the works that are coming in. Public and road users would, to a certain extent, be inconvenienced by all the works that's going on. And undoubtedly, there will be some negative public perception that would be created with all these activities going on. So what is the objective of having this TMP? Our objective is basically to protect the road users and the public from any hazards that may arise from the construction activities. And we would want to minimize the inconveniences that may arise from the construction activities. So basically what we're doing is we are making sure that the contractors' level of preparedness to implement this traffic management plan will meet the standards that is set for the MRT project. So what is the TMP? What do we mean by traffic management plan? So there are a few key elements that are involved in a good traffic management plan. First, it would be planning of road diversions or road detours. Second, it would be the planning of alternative routes. In certain areas, you may need to have road closures and you will need to divert traffic onto another road. Third would be deploying the right personnel, the right people for setting up and monitoring of all these traffic protection that you are putting up. Fourth would be deploying personnel for emergency situations, for what we call emergency response. So you find that in normal cases, contractors would usually lump all this together in one team. So for the MRT project, what we are doing is we are clearly delineating the two functions. The contractors have to set up two separate teams to handle these different functions. And the fifth but not least is when we plan the traffic diversion scheme for the traffic management plan, we take into account previous experiences with regard to how the drivers would react when a particular road is closed or diverted. So what is different in the MRT project with regard to traffic management plan is that the plan is designed by experts with regard to traffic. Here in the plan, we combine the standards that are being used for traffic control together with best practices in the industry that we see here and elsewhere around the world. We are putting in very detailed requirements for planning and also for enforcement onto the contractors that will be involved in the MRT project. And these plans are derived from data and from input that are taken from the traffic impact assessments and the road safety audits that are done by our consultants. So the most important thing is that the plan focuses on minimizing inconvenience to the public. So a typical traffic management setup would involve having the right people, such as a traffic management manager, to manage a team of dedicated personnel to handle the TMP operations. And these personnel would be divided into two categories, namely, as you can see here, the traffic management team and the emergency response team. So the traffic management team would be involved in the setting up and maintenance of the particular work zones, while the emergency response would be involved primarily with emergency situations that may arise from time to time throughout the whole package. So what I want to do now is just to give you an appreciation of what is good traffic management and what is poor traffic management. So we'll show you just some examples of traffic management activities. First of all, when you have traffic management, the first thing that has to be in place are barriers, are the protection barriers. And when barriers are put up at work zones, the barriers must be properly aligned. As you can see here, these are photos of barriers in good alignment.